The snow of that first winter eventually melted into a humid, frantic New York spring. By 1996, the pioneer spirit Amna had spoken of was being tested by the relentless, grinding rhythm of survival. Salman was no longer just driving a taxi, he was a walking map of the 5 boroughs, his ears filled with the static of the dispatch radio and the impatient, rhythmic honking of midtown traffic that sounded like a language he hadn't yet mastered. The birth of a new identity. The biggest shift wasn't the grueling hours or the biting wind. It was the arrival of their daughter, Nadia. She was born in a crowded, sterile hospital room in Elmhurst, surrounded by the sounds of a dozen different languages in the hallway. Nadia was their first true American. "She has your eyes," Salman whispered, looking at the tiny infant wrapped in a stiff hospital blanket. "But she has a U.S. passport. She belongs to this concrete and glass in a way we don't yet." This realization brought a profound new kind of culture shock: parenting in isolation. Back in Pakistan, a child was a communal joy, raised by a village of grandmothers, sisters-in-law, and neighbors who would pass the baby from house to house. In Queens, the apartment was a silent fortress. There was no one to hold the baby while Amna napped, no one to cook the traditional panjiri for a new mother's recovery. Salman and Amna became ships passing in the night. Salman would pull the yellow cab into the driveway at 6 a.m., his eyes red-shot and hands smelling of cigarette smoke and cheap air freshener. He would kiss Nadia's forehead just as Amna was waking up to prepare for her shift at the local library. Their marriage, once built on long evening walks and shared dreams, was now managed through sticky notes left on the refrigerator. "Milk is finished. The store on the corner is cheaper." Nadia coughed twice. I gave her the honey and ginger mixture. "I finally fixed the leaky radiator. Sleep well. Love. S." The friction of values. As Nadia grew into a toddler, a new conflict emerged. Amna, working at the library, was absorbing American culture at an accelerated rate. She began to wear jeans under her kurta, and she spoke with a growing confidence that Salman found both impressive and unsettling. One evening, Amna suggested they take Nadia to a local playgroup. "It's important she interacts with other kids, Salman, not just us." Salman, tired from a 12-hour shift, snapped, "In Karachi, family is enough. Why do we need strangers to teach her how to play? You are becoming too New York, Amna. You forget who we are." "I am not forgetting. I am adding. We cannot raise a Pakistani child in a vacuum. If we don't let her breathe this air, she will suffocate when she grows up." It was their first real ideological rift. They realized that assimilating wasn't a single event, but 1,000 tiny choices that threatened to pull them apart even as they worked toward the same goal. The bad event, the test of dignity. The struggle hit a breaking point one rainy Tuesday. Salman was dropping off a well-dressed passenger in the Upper East Side. The fare was $18.50. When Salman reached back for the money, the man tossed a $10 bill on the seat and tried to leave. When Salman politely asked for the rest, the man turned and hurled a vicious ethnic slur, telling Salman to go back to where he came from, before slamming the door with a force that shook the car. For the first time, Salman didn't just feel tired, he felt utterly defeated. He drove to a quiet side street, parked under a street lamp, and put his head on the steering wheel. He thought of his engineering degree sitting in a dark drawer, a useless piece of paper. He thought of the servant-filled house in Karachi where he was a sahib. When he got home that night, he didn't even take off his jacket. "I want to go back, Amna," he said,
his voice cracking. "We have enough saved for the tickets. Let's just go home. At least there I am a man with a name. Here I am just a target." Amna didn't argue. She sat him down and handed him a cup of tea, extra strong, the way his mother used to make it. "In Karachi, you were someone because of your father's name," she said softly, sitting across from him. "But look at your hands, Salman. They are calloused because you were building a life from nothing. Here you are someone because of your own back. Look at Nadia sleeping. Do you want her to grow up seeing us give up when the world is unkind?" To break the heavy cloud of depression, Amna decided they would host an Eid gathering. Their apartment was tiny, the wallpaper was peeling, and the floorboards creaked, but she filled it with the scent of slow-cooked biryani and cardamom tea. They invited the cricket players from the park, Amna's diverse group of co-workers from the library, and even their neighbor, Mr. Henderson, a retired African-American jazz musician who had spent months complaining about the spicy smells coming from their kitchen. The party was a chaotic, beautiful mess. Mr. Henderson arrived with a sweet potato pie, which Amna served right next to her Shami kebabs. The room was a symphony of Spanglish, Urdu, and Brooklyn accents. At one point, the radio played a catchy pop song. Mr. Henderson started tapping a rhythm on his cane, and Salman, surprisingly, began to drum a traditional tabla beat on the wooden dining table. For a few hours, the immigrant guilt vanished. They weren't outsiders peering through a window. They were a vital thread in the fabric of the neighborhood. Even Mr. Henderson admitted, "That yellow rice of yours, it ain't half bad, kid."
The turning point, the green card interview. Part 2 of their journey reached its climax in 1999 at the Federal Building in Lower Manhattan. They stood in a sterile hallway, clutching a thick folder that held their entire American existence, tax returns, birth certificates, and photos of them at the Statue of Liberty. The immigration officer was a stern woman who looked like she had seen it all. She flipped through Salman's file. "You were a senior engineer in Pakistan. Why have you been driving a taxi for 5 years?" Salman looked at Amna, who gave his hand a silent squeeze. He looked the officer in the eye. "Because in my country, I built bridges out of steel and concrete, but those bridges were already there. Here, I am building a bridge for my daughter's future. It is much harder to build a bridge out of 12-hour shifts and cold winters, but it is the most important engineering I have ever done." The officer stared at him for a long beat. The silence in the room was heavy. Then she picked up a large rubber stamp and pressed it down with a definitive thud. "Welcome home, Mr. and Mrs. Khan." As they walked out into the crisp autumn air of Manhattan, the skyscrapers didn't look like jagged teeth anymore. They looked like milestones. They realized the greatest lesson of their first decade. Home isn't the soil you were born on, it's the place where you refuse to give up.